Before we start, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. Also, can you please tell me where and what time you're watching? Thanks. Life hasn't exactly been kind to me. Name's Jack, 29 years old, and if there were a poster for wasted potential, my face would be front and center. I dropped out of high school thinking I was destined to be the next Kurt Cobain. Played in a few bands, smoked way too much weed, and then, well, things went downhill fast. Drugs got their claws into me, and before I knew it, I was just another burnout with a busted Honda Civic, an empty bank account, and a head full of regrets. That's how I ended up driving down some lonely back road in Ohio. The kind of road where cornfields stretch endlessly, and the only thing breaking the monotony is the occasional rusted-out barn leaning like it's given up on life. My car was sputtering, running on fumes, and I was praying to whatever might listen that I'd make it to the next gas station. That's when I saw it, a flyer taped to a telephone pole. Help wanted, gas station cashier, night shift, $50 per hour. Apply in person at 7-Eleven, mile marker 47, $50 an hour, for a night shift at a rundown 7-Eleven. That was more than I used to make in a week playing gigs. It felt off, too good to be true, but desperation does funny things to a man. So I took the exit and pulled into the lot. The place looked like it had been frozen in time since the 80s. Peeling paint, cracked windows, and a flickering neon sign that buzzed like an angry swarm of bees. The second I stepped inside, a bell above the door jingled, sharp and shrill, like a funeral chime. Behind the counter stood a man, pale, almost sickly, like he hadn't seen the sun in years. He didn't smile, didn't even really acknowledge me, just slid a clipboard across the counter. "Read the rules," he said, his voice flat and lifeless. "Follow them, or don't. But if you don't, you won't last the night." I glanced down at the paper, 7 rules typed in bold, all caps. They didn't read like normal workplace guidelines. They were specific in a way that made my stomach churn. But $50 an hour. I swallowed my hesitation and scrawled my name at the bottom. Biggest mistake of my life. The guy, Earl he called himself, gave me the rundown. Shift starts at 10 p.m., ends at 6 a.m. You're alone the whole time. No deliveries, no visitors, no exceptions. He handed me a flashlight and a set of keys. "Keep this on you at all times," he said. "Power goes out sometimes." I chuckled. Power goes out? In a gas station? He didn't laugh. Didn't even blink. Just follow the rules. The rules were pinned to the wall behind the counter, laminated like they were sacred scripture. I read them again and again, trying to make sense of them. Rule 1. If the lights flicker, lock the doors immediately. Do not open them for anyone, no matter what they say or how they plead. Rule 2. If you hear a child crying outside, do not look out the windows. Turn up the radio and wait for it to stop. Rule 3. The freezer door must remain closed at all times. If you hear knocking from inside, ignore it. Do not open it, even if the knocking turns to screaming. Rule 4. Every hour, check the security cameras. If you see a figure in the parking lot, do not acknowledge it. It will go away if you pretend it's not there. Rule 5. If a customer comes in wearing a red jacket, do not make eye contact. Serve them quickly. Speak as little as possible. Rule 6. At 3:33 a.m., the register will open by itself. Take exactly $333 and place it in the donation jar by the door. Do not keep the change. Rule 7. If you see a man in a black suit standing by the gas pumps, do not leave the store. Wait until sunrise, no matter how long it takes. I figured it was a joke. Maybe some weird initiation for new employees. But as the night dragged on, the air in that place got heavy, like something was watching, waiting. Around midnight, the lights flickered. My pulse spiked. My fingers fumbled to lock the doors. And then, the knocking started. Slow, persistent, a voice, human, pleading to be let in. I squeezed my eyes shut, heart hammering, and stayed put. At 2 a.m., I heard the crying, a little girl sobbing right outside the door. My gut twisted. My hand hovered over the lock. But the rules. I turned up the radio, drowning out the sound. After a few minutes, it stopped. Just stopped. By 3:33, I was drenched in sweat. Right on cue, the register popped open. My fingers trembled as I took the money and stuffed it into the donation jar. The glass felt wrong, cold, like it had been sitting in a freezer. At 4 a.m., I checked the security cameras. There was a figure, motionless, standing in the parking lot facing the store. My throat went dry. I did not look outside. The last hour was the worst. At 5:15, the man in the black suit appeared. He stood by the gas pumps, staring, not moving. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. The rules said to stay inside. So I waited. The minutes crawled by. My skin felt like it was stretched too tight over my bones. And then, the sun finally rose. Earl walked in at 6 a.m. sharp, looking me up and down like he hadn't expected to see me still standing. "You made it," he said, almost surprised. I didn't reply, didn't know how to, because I had a feeling that whatever had been out there last night, it wasn't done with me yet. I didn't tell Earl about the things I had seen. I just went home, hoping, praying, that it was all in my head. But it wasn't. I didn't want to go back, really didn't. But $50 an hour, that was more than I'd ever made in my life. And besides, maybe the first night was just a fluke. Maybe I was overtired, or high, or just imagining things. So at 9:45 p.m., I showed up again. My hands trembled as I unlocked the door. Earl was already there, looking exactly the same, like he hadn't slept in a decade. "You came back," he muttered, almost like he didn't believe it. "Yeah," I said, forcing a smirk, trying to sound tough. "It's just a gas station, right?" He didn't answer, just handed me the keys and left. The first few hours were quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring. I kept checking the security cameras, but the parking lot was empty. No crying, no knocking, nothing. Then at 1 a.m., I heard it. A soft tap, tap, tap coming from the freezer door. I froze, my pulse thudding against my ribs. The rules said to ignore it. But what if someone was trapped in there? A kid? A homeless guy looking for shelter? The knocking grew louder, harder, more frantic. Then, it turned into full-on banging, like someone was throwing themselves against the door, desperate to get out. And then the voices started, muffled, pleading. "Let us out," they screamed. "Please, let us out." I almost did it. I almost opened that door. But then I remembered the rules. I backed away, my hands shaking. The banging didn't stop immediately. It went on for a few agonizing minutes before fading into nothing. The voices, too, disappeared like they had never been there at all. I was trembling so hard I could barely stand. I checked the security cameras again, needing something to ground me. That's when I saw it. A figure, standing in the parking lot. It hadn't been there before. I did not look outside. At 3:33 a.m., the register popped open again. My hands were slick with sweat as I grabbed the money and shoved it into the donation jar. My fingers brushed against something cold and slimy inside. I recoiled, did not look. At 4:30 a.m. he came, the man in the black suit, standing by the gas pumps, staring at the store, not moving, not blinking. I stayed put. I waited. When the sun finally rose, I was a wreck. Earl walked in, gave me a once-over, and nodded slightly. "You're still here," he said. "Yeah," I croaked, my throat raw. "What the hell is going on here?" He didn't answer, just handed me my paycheck and walked out. By the third night, I was convinced I was losing my mind. The rules, the noises, the figures in the parking lot. It was all too much. But $50 an hour? That's not easy to walk away from. So, once again, I showed up. Told myself I'd just keep my head down, follow the rules, and get through it. Like always, Earl handed me the keys, gave me that same dead-eyed look, and left without a word. I was alone again. The neon sign outside flickered and buzzed, a swarm of electric bees. The first few hours were quiet, but I felt it. A heaviness in the air, a tension thick enough to choke on. At midnight, the lights flickered. My stomach turned to ice. Hands shaking, I immediately locked the doors. A few seconds later, the knocking started. Pound, pound, pound. "Please," a voice begged. "Let me in. They're out here." I clenched my jaw, heart hammering. I didn't look. I couldn't. The rules were clear. The pounding stopped. The lights stabilized. I checked the cameras, and that's when I saw it. A figure standing just outside, facing the store. It hadn't been there before. I tried to ignore it, tried to focus on anything else. But the feeling of being watched burrowed deep into my skin, like crawling ants beneath my flesh. I turned up the radio, desperate for a distraction, but all I got was static. Somehow, that was worse. At 2 a.m., the crying started. Louder this time. Desperate. I turned up the volume, but it didn't help, because the sound wasn't coming from outside anymore. It was everywhere, outside, inside, in my head. I checked the cameras again. The figure had moved. Closer now. Just a few feet from the door. I refused to look outside. At 3:33 a.m., the register popped open. I grabbed the cash and shoved it into the donation jar. My fingers again brushed against something slimy, cold. I pulled away fast. At 4:30 a.m., the man in the black suit arrived, same as before, standing by the gas pumps, unmoving, watching. I did not leave the store. When the sun finally rose, I was wrecked. Earl walked in, took one look at me, and smirked. "You're still here." "Yeah," I whispered. But for the first time, I wasn't sure how much longer that would last. My voice came out hoarse. "What the hell is going on here?" Earl didn't answer. He just handed me my paycheck and walked out. By the fourth night, I wasn't sure if I was coming or going. My hands shook like I was detoxing all over again, and my head felt stuffed with cotton. But $50 an hour, that was the kind of money that made you ignore the voice in your head screaming at you to run. I pulled into the 7-Eleven parking lot just before 10 p.m., the Honda's engine sputtering like it was on its last legs. The neon sign buzzed louder than usual, flickering in a way that made my teeth ache. Earl was waiting inside, his face pale and drawn, like he hadn't slept in weeks. "You're back," he said, his voice flat. "Yeah," I muttered, trying to sound tough. "Ain't nothing here I can't handle." He didn't laugh. He just handed me the keys and walked out without another word. The first couple of hours were quiet, but the kind of quiet that sets your nerves on edge. The hum of the coolers, the buzz of the lights, the occasional creak of the building settling. It all felt too loud, too close. I kept glancing at the rules pinned to the wall, the words burning into my brain like a brand. Around midnight, the lights flickered. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. But I followed the rules. I locked the doors. A few seconds later, someone started pounding on the glass. "Please," a voice begged, "let me in. They're out here." I didn't look. I couldn't. The rules were clear. The pounding stopped after a few minutes. The lights steadied. I checked the cameras, and that's when I saw it. A figure in the parking lot, just standing there facing the store. It wasn't there before. I tried to ignore it, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it was watching me. I turned up the radio, but the static made it worse. At 2 a.m., I heard the crying again. Louder this time, more desperate. I cranked the volume higher, but it didn't help. The sound wasn't just outside. It was everywhere. Outside. Inside. In my head. I checked the cameras again. The figure was closer now, just a few feet from the door. I didn't dare look outside. At 3:33 a.m., the register popped open. My stomach knotted as I grabbed the cash and stuffed it into the donation jar. My fingers brushed against something inside, something cold, something slimy. I didn't look. At 4:30 a.m., The man in the black suit showed up, just like before. He stood by the gas pumps, staring at the store, not moving, not blinking. I didn't leave when the sun came up. I was a wreck. Earl showed up, took one look at me and said, "You're still here?" "Yeah," I said, my voice hoarse. "What the hell is going on here?" He didn't answer. He just handed me my paycheck and left. By the 5th night, I stopped caring about the rules. The money was good, yeah, but something else kept pulling me back. A mix of spite and stubbornness, maybe. Or maybe I was just too damn tired to care anymore. The nightmares had started bleeding into my waking hours. I'd hear the freezer knocking in my sleep, see the man in the black suit standing at the foot of my bed. Still, I showed up. Earl wasn't there when I arrived. The door was unlocked, the keys sitting on the counter like he'd tossed them there in a hurry. The whole place felt off. Colder. Darker. Like the shadows were pressing in closer than usual. The neon sign outside buzzed like a dying wasp, flickering so badly it made the walls pulse. I didn't bother reading the rules again. I knew them by heart. Midnight came and went. No flickering lights. No crying. Nothing. Just the hum of the coolers and the slow, steady ticking of the clock. I started thinking maybe it was over. Maybe the place had gotten bored with me. Then at 3:17 a.m., the freezer started screaming. Not knocking, not begging. Screaming. Human voices, raw and ragged, howling like they were being skinned alive. "Jack!" one of them shrieked. I froze. They knew my name. "Let us out, Jack. You owe us." My hands shook so badly I dropped the flashlight. It rolled under the counter. I bent down to grab it, and that's when I saw it, a stain on the floor. Old rust-colored, it spread out from under the freezer door. "Don't open it, don't open it, don't..." I opened it. The cold hit me first, sharp enough to burn my lungs. Then the smell, rotten meat and copper, thick enough to taste. The freezer light was out, but my flashlight beam cut through the dark, trembling. In my grip there were no bodies, no people, just meat. Piles of it, wrapped in plastic, blood seeping through the seams. But the plastic, it wasn't right. Too smooth, too shiny, like it wasn't plastic at all. Then one of the packages moved. I stumbled back, tripping over my own boots. The flashlight clattered to the floor, spinning. Its beam landed on the ceiling, and in that split second I saw it. A shape, long, twisted, clinging to the rafters like a spider. Its skin was pale, peeled raw, stretched too tight over bone. And its mouth, Christ. Its mouth was stitched shut, thick black threads digging into blackened, rotting lips. The freezer door slammed shut behind me. I scrambled to my feet, heart hammering, grabbing the flashlight with shaking hands. But the thing was gone. The screaming stopped. The freezer hummed like nothing had happened. But the stain on the floor was bigger now. Fresh. I spent the rest of the night huddled behind the counter, the flashlight clutched to my chest like a lifeline. At 3 a.m., the man in the black suit showed up early. And this time, he wasn't alone. Shadowy figures lingered at the edges of the parking lot, watching, waiting. At 3:33 a.m., the register popped open. I didn't take the money. When Earl arrived at sunrise, he didn't speak. He just stared, first at the freezer door, then at me. His eyes widened like he was looking at a ghost. "You opened it," he whispered. "Yeah," I said, my voice hollow. "So what?" He handed me my paycheck and walked out. This time the money smelled like rot. The freezer wouldn't stop bleeding. I'd mopped it up 3 times already, but the dark, sticky pool kept spreading from under the door, seeping across the floor like it had a mind of its own. The whole place reeked of iron and decay, so thick I could taste it. But I didn't care. Not anymore. Rules? Hell with the rules. I was done playing scared. Earl hadn't shown up to hand off the keys. The door was already unlocked when I got there, swinging open with a creak, a sound too much like a laugh. The lights inside were dimmer than usual. The neon sign outside, dark, No buzz, no hum, just silence. Heavy, suffocating. I kicked the freezer door. You want to scare me? Try harder. Nothing answered. For the first hour, nothing happened. No flickering lights, no crying, no figures in the parking lot. Just me. The blood. The stink. Then, around midnight, the radio crackled to life on its own. Static at first. Then, a voice. Raspy. Wet, like it was speaking through a mouthful of dirt. Jack, we know you're here. I ripped the plug out of the wall. The silence felt worse. At 1 a.m., the freezer started singing. A hymn, something my ma used to hum when I was a kid. I'll fly away, oh glory. Voices, harmonizing, sweet and rotten. I grabbed a crowbar from the back room, wedged it under the freezer door. Shut up, I screamed, levering it open. Cold air billowed out. A swarm of fat black flies poured into the room, coating the ceiling, the walls, my face. I swung the crowbar wildly, hitting nothing but air. When the swarm cleared, the freezer was empty. No meat, no plastic, no spider thing. Just a single Polaroid taped to the back wall. A picture of me, standing behind the counter, my face gaunt, my eyes hollow. And behind me, reflected in the security mirror, the man in the black suit, his hand on my shoulder. The date scrawled on the bottom, tonight. I crumpled the photo, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Then, I heard it. Knocking. Not from the freezer. The front door. A woman stood outside, her face pressed to the glass. She wore a red jacket. Rule number 5 flashed in my head. Don't make eye contact. But I was past that. I stared right at her. We're closed, I snapped. She smiled. Her lips split at the corners, the skin peeling like old brittle paper. You've been naughty, Jack. The door swung open on its own. Cold air rushed in, thick with the scent of wet earth and gasoline. Behind her, the parking lot was full. Dozens of them. All in black suits. All staring at me. The man from the gas pump stepped forward, his face finally visible under the dim light. He looked familiar, like someone I'd seen before, in old family photos. Time to pay your debt, he said. His voice echoed inside my skull. I bolted for the back door. It wouldn't budge. The handle was coated in that same cold slime from the donation jar. The figures closed in, their shadows stretching across the floor, swallowing the light. The last thing I saw, the freezer door swinging open. Then, nothing. The flyers still there, taped to the telephone pole at mile marker 47. Help wanted, gas station cashier, night shift, $50 per hour. A new guy showed up tonight, young, desperate, reeking of weed and bad decisions. He signed the paper without reading the rules. I watch him from the parking lot. My black suit fits snug, my stitches hold my jaw shut. Earl stands beside me, his face pale, his eyes empty. He's been here longer than I have. The new guy's laughing as he unlocks the door, thinking he's hit the jackpot. He ain't laughing when the freezer starts knocking.